What's up everyone, this is Oscar from Underdog, and today I want to talk a little bit about some things that Four Tet does in his music. I don't know how many of you know about this, but the Underdog channel does actually have a Patreon where I upload track analysis. The idea of a track analysis is that I can listen to music that already exists and study it in depth and then write down all the different things that happen in the music to better understand why those songs excite me the way they do. And essentially it's like education for me and the viewers of deep, active, conscious listening to music. I don't really promote the Patreon a lot because it feels kind of salesy. I see it like a bit of a tipping jar for the channel. But anyway, once you sign up for the Patreon, you get access to all the track analyses that I've ever done. But I was analyzing this Four Tet song, which this is the name and this is the title. So in my universe, I'm just gonna call that Four Tet and the song title, I've Got Feelings. Because the climax of the song basically goes like this.
I've got feelings.
And because I played you that sound, this video is now going to be demonetized, which sucks for me, I guess. It's the price of education. But anyway, let's turn this into a learning opportunity and take a moment to take 3 lessons away from that song. And let's go through them together. The first one is the swing. It's got a very interesting swing that I want to talk about. The second one is the mixdown. It's got a very interesting mixdown that I want to talk about. And the third one is its climax arrangement. It's got a very interesting arrangement that I want to talk about. Starting off, why do I love this song? I love this song because it is somewhere in the house music territory, but it is so minimalist in a way that it's very much like many techno songs. It uses just one idea and manages to evolve that idea over the course of many, many minutes without it feeling stale. It always feels fresh. And so that's why I'm interested in finding out how that even works. Number 1, the groove. The main beat goes something like this. And just to capture the pattern, I've reprogrammed it in a standard just 707 drum machine with no sound design whatsoever, but just to capture what's going on in the drum loop. And what I've done in this case is I've not applied any swing just yet. This is what it sounds like without swing. And now the same pattern with some swing applied with every second 16th note pushed back a little bit. You see how those 16th notes are pushed a little bit off the grid? Listen to what that sounds like. And I know you'll be like, Oscar, swing isn't new. Why are you telling us about swing? This is so boring. Tell me something I don't know. Well, here's something that I didn't know. What if, instead of the regular 16th note grid, we turn on the triplet 16th note grid? See what happens when I turn on the triplet grid? Those 16th notes that were previously off the grid are now perfectly on the grid. What the heck? So if you take every second 16th note and you push its starting point back, there is a moment when that starting point is instead going to align with the starting point if it would be triplets instead. And so what you could do is you could just use the triplet grid and consider yourself locking into that instead. Now remember, the triplets at different note value lengths feel very different. So a triplet at a 16th note value feels very different from a triplet at an 8th note value and of a quarter note value. Those are very different feelings. So we're specifically talking about the one at the 16th note. Or if you don't want to do that, what you could also just do is you could take a groove from the groove pool that pushes things back just the right amount. For example, this one. The 909 Groove Shuffle 5 does exactly that. See what happens when I apply that groove to the notes? All the right notes get pushed back the right amount. I find this kind of fascinating, and if I can advise you one thing, it's to go to the video called DIY Breakbeats from a few weeks ago. And in that video, I explain how to construct something like this, where it's basically the difference between low, mid, and high percussion in short swung intervals like that make something like this so groovy and swingy. Go check that out. Next point, and this is for me maybe the biggest one. But it's the most subtle one, so let's see. It's about the mixdown. This song is incredibly dancey, and it's all about the drums, right? And so what happens is that if you solo only the mids of this song, what you hear is an incredibly punchy mixdown. Everything is percussion that comes in, boops you in the body, and then goes away. There's almost no sustained sounds that stay for a long time, bass notes that stay ringing out. There's almost none of that. Listen to this. Compared to the lows. Still quite punchy. And the highs are not punchy at all. It's slushy, really slushy, never stopping hi-hats. So particularly the low mids are very sparse. There's almost nothing going on there except the transients of these drums. And that's so exciting because very often in my own productions, I'll add in some drums and then start adding layers over the top that eventually flatten the dynamics of the track and don't make it quite so punchy. And so now hearing this mid-range like this really left an impact on me, and I'm looking for this quality when I'm doing my productions now. I'm soloing the mids and I'm looking for that feeling of space between elements and that the elements that come in are a little bit punchy. Listen to it again and really take it in. Even though the elements feel full and warm and beautiful and round, they don't ring out for a long time. There is, in terms of time, a lot of space between all of these elements, and that's very beautiful. And the third lesson that I want to take away from this song is this arrangement. Look at this arrangement. Each one of these pink blocks is 16 bar loop. So the 16 bar loop is the core building block of this track, which in itself isn't that special. But then it very regularly, between these blocks of 16 bars, alternates to this little 3-bar idea. And I'm going to just call this a squeeze in because it's like it kind of feels like it's squeezed into the arrangement. You have a block of 16 bars, a weird thing of 3 bars, and then another block of 16 bars. And the weird thing is this kind of resonator type sound that goes like this.
I've got feelings.
And by the way, this resonator sound can be made by taking a percussion, playing a percussion, and putting it into something called a resonator. It'll give you something in this sound world. I've got feelings. Now, obviously, the point of this sound is to provide contrast, to provide a little bit of breathing space from this very loopy and almost boring kind of groove, to give your ears a very different timbre to lock onto for a moment before putting you back into the loop. And typically when I teach people arrangement, I have two main ideas that I suggest. One is the break, where you take a block of 16 bars and for some portion of it you mute the kick drum and all the bass elements to create kind of a climax like that. Let's just call it a break and a drop, that kind of an idea. Or you do something called a committed turnaround, where you take a block of 16 bars and by the end of the block of 16 bars you let your song disintegrate and you go into a very different sound world before you snap back in at the start of the next 16 bars. And this is neither of those. This is a little mini break, but maybe what's weird about it is that it's 3 bars long. That's something very few people do. But nowadays I guess a lot of DJs are anyway just DJing with loops, so they can set something to 8 bars and just let it go. I guess one of my advices when you're making dance music is to really respect that rule of 16 bars, simply because DJs might be lining up your songs by ear to blend them in with other songs. But as time goes on, I think that advice gets less and less relevant, given that DJing technology now very much leans on reliable loops of like 8 or 16 bars, where the DJ can just loop sections and just let them go. So you don't have to respect that rule as much anymore. So doing a 3-bar break is cool because it's weird, it's unexpected. The timbre is so different from the drum loop that it really shocks your ears back into alertness before dropping you back into this friendly drum loop. Does that make sense? So I'm going to call this the squeeze in as a technique. So you can just focus on designing your 16 bar blocks, and then you design a little space in between those 16 bars where your challenge is to change the texture so much that you provide contrast to the rest of your composition. And contrast helps create emotional dynamics, which is something that is very interesting and I will come back to often in other videos as well. I hope this little analysis was helpful. Go check out all my track analyses on Patreon if you just want to support the channel, or go follow one of my courses on courses at underdog.brussels. Leave me a comment to be sweet and nice and cute to me. Subscribe to the channel and like the video. It all helps with the algorithm. And until next time, stay producing, be good to each other, and take care. Bye-bye.